نباید باشه. ما باید ببینیم که چی میخوایم. ما آزادی احزاب احتیاج داریم در یعنی که بتونیم چندین ما فعالیت بکنیم. رسانه ها باید آزاد باشه. زندان‌های سیاسی باید خالی بشه. حقوق بشر باید حفظ بشه. حقوق زنان باید حفظ بشه. حقوق کودکان باید حفظ بشه. با درود مجدد خدمت شما عزیزان. یاسر نازنین دوباره ریبوت کرد. امیدواریم که دیگه به مشکل نخوریم. مشکل اینترنتی بود. خب خوشحالم، خیلی سریع میرم که وقت آقای تیمرم هم نگیرم. میدونم یاسر هم کار داره. خیلی خوشحالم که همونطور که آقای تیمرم دفعه گذشته که با ما بود درباره کتابش The Iran House با ما صحبت کرد، گفت نزدیکای الکشنز انتخابات امریکا این کتاب میان بیرون و این کتاب آمده بیرون. خوشحالم که بتونیم درباره کتاب The Iran House با هم صحبت کنیم. این کتاب تو آمازون الان اویلیبله. یه سری از بچهای ما گرفتن آردی. من خودم 2 روزه گرفتم، از بابودی رو به زور میگرفتم که بتونم سوال در بیارم از توش. خیلی کتاب جالبیه، مخصوصا برای ماهایی که سیاسی هستیم و کار سیاسی کردیم، چون اغلب افرادی که توی این کتاب منشن میشن و ما همه باهاشون از دور و نزدیک آشناییم و کن یک چیزایی درباره این افراد میگه که خود من مثلا یه قسمتش الان خوندم، همونطور منتظرم که بعد بتونم امروز و فردا کتاب با دیتیل تمام بخونم. خب از میگذاریم میریم سراغ سوالا از آقای تیمرم. Ken, thank you so much again for taking your time out of your busy schedule. I know that you have all this interviews about the book, about the situation in the Middle East, about the elections coming up, and I really appreciate you always taking time to be with me. Everybody was very anxious and excited when I said I'm having an interview with Ken Timmerman. Everyone's like tuned in to Clubhouse, to YouTube to hear you. The book is, I haven't really had time to really read it in detail, but I'm really looking forward to it because, as you see, I've put all these notes and everything, and I'm really interested in it. And I mean, I guess some of the people, because obviously some of them you're not using their real name. I'm playing guessing games with my own mind who they are, and I feel your pain. I'm gonna mention it in a little bit about the frustration of everything that we've done, you especially, with your Foundation for Democracy all these years. And sometimes it seems like people pretend they're hearing, but they're not hearing. And I feel this frustration sometimes in your book with the American officials hearing and not hearing. And I want to ask you about that a little bit. Now, do you want to start with the book, or do you want to start with the current situation in the Middle East, which is very important, and of course the elections coming up? Which one would you rather we start with?
Well, they're all really intertwined.
Yeah.
I mean,
they are.
Book lays the groundwork for understanding what's going on today. And as you know, and I think some of our viewers know, I've been involved in Iran policy and with the Iranian community as well as an observer for decades now. So I have a kind of background that a lot of American reporters or investigative reporters, war correspondents would not have. So it's whatever you like, Roxanne.
Okay. Let me translate. آقای تیمرم میگه که پرسیدم میخوای اول درباره کتاب حرف بزنیم یا درباره اتفاقاتی که داره تو خاورمیانه میفته یا اینکه درباره الکشنز امریکا، و دقیقاً درست میگه اینا همه با هم دیگه دست در دست هم میره که کتاب آقای تیمرمن خب توضیح میده که میتونه مکمل این اتفاقاتی که ما داریم میبینیم داره میفته باشه. و آقای تیمرمن سالیان ساله. When did FTD's Foundation for Democracy in Iran start? What year? 1995. So that's when dad's operation was cut short. You picked up there actually. Well, I mean, you started. You were before. Yeah. Before that, you were dealing with Iran.
Many years before, and I met Dad in Paris.
Yeah, right.
And then moved to the United States in '93 and set up.
I remember Nader Afshar was with you, and Royce was alive back then. God bless his soul. آقای تیمرم قبل از که فاندیشن فور دموکراسی رو شروع کنه واقعا درباره ایران داشت کار میکرد. یکی از امریکایی‌های ژورنالیست‌های امریکایی خیلی نادریه که واقعا رو ایران با دلش کار کرد. You really worked on the situation in Iran really truly as an Iranian. You are so passionate about that. Sometimes I think maybe you were born an Iranian in another life with the interests you have. خیلی passionate که درباره ایران.
But
Sorry.
look, the early scenes in the book, Roxanne, is this accidental meeting, in quotes, accidental meeting between Reza Pahlavi and Bill Clinton when he was president. And I set the scene.
I remember in the restaurant, right, in the restaurant. You have it in your other book too, Countdown to Crisis. You talk about that.
Right.
Ken, and back then you were advising Reza Pahlavi on certain issues, right?
I was a very close friend of Reza's and spoke to him frequently. And yes, and I remain friendly with Reza Pahlavi. I have a great deal of respect and esteem for him.
Okay, Ken میگه که من یه میتینگ مثلا اتفاقی بین کلینتون و رضا پهلوی درست کردم که تو اون کتاب کانتداون تو کرایسیس هم میگه که توی یه رستورانی بودن، کلینتون میاد تو، بعد سلام علیک میکنن، بعد میرن به you go to another section of the restaurant to sit with Clinton, right?
Right. And we were moved by the Secret Service, which was the funniest thing about it, because we were there with Shahryar Ahi and Reza Pahlavi in a distant table, and they moved us right up so we would be in the way when Clinton came in. So, I stood up to shake his hand, and Reza seemed to have lost his voice. And I think somebody must have kicked him under the table and brought him forward so I could introduce him to President Clinton at the time, which I think was a very good thing to do.
But they didn't have a conversation, or you did have a conversation?
Absolutely had a conversation.
Yeah, right.
Count
and
that.
Then you moved to another section, right?
We count that in the book, and Clinton revealed at that point that he actually had been trying the first 2 years of his presidency to establish a connection with Rafsanjani in Tehran. And he said, well, we tried it that way for 2 years. It didn't work. So now we're going to go to sanctions. And that was it was the turning point, really, of American policy, that flip from the secret outreach by Democrats. And by the way, that is a theme throughout this book. You're going to see.
Yeah, right. I feel it a little bit.
The Democrat Party in the United States systematically has an outreach to the mullahs in Tehran. They have this notion that somehow they have more in common with the mullahs in Tehran than they do with 50% of the electorate in the United States of America. It's really quite scandalous. And
I'm going to ask you a question about the embassy in Baghdad in a minute and Biden, but let me translate this. کن میگه که ما با شخص رضا پهلوی مثلا قرار بودش که اکسیدنتال میت کنیم با کلینتون توی یه رستورانی بودیم، خیلی جالب و خنده داره که خود سیکرت سرویس اومد ما رو از یه میز آورد قبل از که کلینتون بیاد به یه میز دیگه که وسط راه کلینتون باشیم که میاد تو مجبور بشه با ما سلام علیک کنه. آقای تیمرم بلند میشه سلام علیک میکنه با کلینتون، بعد شاهزاده مثل که صداشو اصلا از دست میده، یه جوری هول میشه که کن میگه مثل که یکی از زیر میز بهش زد که بابا سلام علیک گفت و اینا. خلاصه با هم صحبت میکنن، بعد میرن به میشنن سر میز با هم دیگه صحبت که میکنن. کلینتون میگه که ما 2 سال اول پرزیدنسی کلینتون خیلی سعی کردن با فکشن رفسنجانی در ارتباط باشن و رابطه برقرار کنن و کن میگه که این تمیه که دموکرات‌ها در این سالها داشتن که حاضرن بیشتر تلاش کنن برای دیالوگ داشتن با جمهوری اسلامی و ملاها تا با 50% رای دهنده‌های امریکا که سعی کنن اونا رو بیارن طرف خودشون، بیشتر طرف ملاها. And you know, Ken, it was during those first 2 years of Clinton that the budget for Derafsh was cut, because as a part of negotiations with them, they wanted Derafsh to go away because Derafsh was becoming a threat to them. Absolutely. So during that time, they cut the budget of the most organized at that time, I believe, besides the Mujahideen, who had a much larger budget than Derafsh ever did, to cut the budget for Derafsh, which they did just like that. The Democrats just cut after 10 years of telling my dad that they were going to be doing clandestine job and wanting to overthrow the regime. That's it. They wanted to deal with the mullahs. و دقیقا به کن میگم تو همون زمان بود که اینا بودجه درفشکاویانه قطع کردن. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, and no more support from the U.S. government directly any anti-regime activity. So my organization set up in 1995 kind of slipped in under the radar through the National Endowment for Democracy. Nobody at that time was really paying much attention to the National Endowment for Democracy. And we got an early grant from them to do human rights monitoring inside Iran. And ultimately, that led to us getting in touch with young students at Tehran University. And we were the first organization anywhere, I think, that got photographs from the 1999 student uprising when they were throwing kids off the roof of the dormitories, killing them by throwing them off the roof. We got those pictures and were able to put them out on the internet within minutes. And that was kind of the beginning of this citizen journalism that you see today in Iran, where ordinary people, now people have cell phones, so they can go on with cell phone cameras. Those they didn't. So they had digital cameras or they had digital video, and they would send us that information and we would post it immediately. And it had a pretty dramatic impact, I think.
I remember. And then you had the newsletter that let everybody outside know what's going on. And that was the extent that we could do. Fax machine and newsletters back then. خب آقای تیمرم میگه و زمانی که درفش بوجهش رو بستن، دولت امریکا دیگه تصمیم گرفت که به هیچ ارگانیزیشنی که برای براندازی کار میکنه دیرکتلی پول نده. حالا ممکنه ایندایرکتلی به بعضیا میداده ولی دیرکتلی نده. آقای تیمرم شانس آورده که انداومنت فور دموکراسی بودجه داشته و اینا و کسی زیاد بهش توجه نمی‌کرده که آقای تیمرم موقعی که فاندیشن فور دموکراسی این ایران رو راه انداخته تونسته اون بودجه رو بگیره که تماس برقرار کنه بیشتر با دانشجوها در داخل ایران، که وقتی کوی دانشجوها اتفاق افتاد زمان خاتمی و بچه‌ها رو از دورمتوری پرت می‌کردن پایین و اینا که همون جنبش دانشجویی بود، آقای تیمرم اینا اون موقع یادم عکس‌ها رو از داخل ایران براشون، موقعی که سلفون و تلفن نداشت، این چیز دوربین نداشت، اینا عکس‌ها رو می‌گرفتن بلافاصله پخش می‌کردن با نیوزلترهایی که داشتن و فکس و این چیزا. بنابراین خیلی اکتیو بود که یعنی تمام این سال‌ها خیلی اکتیو بوده. Well, one thing that struck me and kind of is close to my heart is you called yourself, one day you got a knock on the door and some Fed agents came by and wanted you to, they wanted to see if you would be willing to talk to Iranians that they couldn't and help them, you know, understand what's going on. And you call yourself an agent runner. And you did that, of course, for your country. You did anything, and you say that in the book. Well, we've kind of had our little encounters with the U.S. officials also as oppositions working outside, which we've given a lot of information about what's going on inside Iran. And sometimes I feel like, why are we even giving them this information? I don't see anything coming out of this. It seems like all the bad people are continuing what they're doing, and we're just watching and getting frustrated. The mosques are getting bigger and bigger. The reformists are infiltrating the universities more and more. They were. And now I think there's been a little bit of a light bulb, or maybe now it's time to act that way. Why do you think all these years that all of us, you, us, we've been telling them the danger of this Islamic fundamentalism to the world, not only the United States? Why is it that they kept quiet and watched?
Well, listen, the reason that the FBI solicited my help was on very specific counterterrorism cases. They were asking me what I thought about the regime. They weren't asking me what I thought the Middle East should look like. They were asking me very specific, do you know Mr. So-and-so? Do you have somebody who has information from this office inside Iran? And we'd talk about it. I say, well, you know, actually, I know a guy. And then I'd start talking to them about the guy that I knew and somebody I'd known perhaps for 10 years or 20 years. Because one of the many things that I've done as a reporter and as a consultant for the victims of the 9/11 terrorism attacks was to debrief defectors from Iranian intelligence. So people who come out from the Etelaat or people who come out from the Sepah and they want to come to the West, I tend to be one of the people that they go to, that they come to talk. Sometimes these so-called defectors are fake, they're phony. Sometimes they masquerade as people who want to be part of the opposition, and they're really not. But other times they are for real. And so as I worked for the lawyers with the 9/11 case, I was also publishing articles about some of these defectors. And that's how the FBI first came to me, not too long after the 9/11 attacks, and asked me if I was able to get in contact with Mohsen Rezai, who is the the former head of the SEPA.
Right, IRGC, right.
That's how that began.
خب آقای تیمرمن
And then we had an operation to try to recruit him for the United States government.
But you had been in touch with him before that or no?
What's that?
Were you in touch with him before that you were able?
With Ahmad Rezai.
Ahmad Rezai, right.
That's why they came to me, because I had known Ahmad since he first came to the United States as a defector, and he was considered a high-level defector by the Central Intelligence Agency in 1998. And he came to me and sort of came under my wing. My wife and I put him up in our house in Maryland for about 6 months. He learned English. No, it was not scary. It was delightful. He learned.
No, you were daring to do that.
He learned English in our basement watching Jackie Chan movies. It was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. He would speak with a Korean accent in English. Ahmad was a sweet person, and when he ultimately got married to a South Korean woman, they named their daughter after our daughter, who he got to be very close with. So we were very close.
خب آقای تیمرم میگه که دلیلی که اومدن سراغ من FBI ها به خاطر این بود که من احمد رضایی رو وقتی آمد بیرون و دیفکت کرد اینا اومد به منزل من و تو خونه من 6 ماه زندگی میکرد تو زیرزمین. میگه خیلی بامزه بود چون تو زیرزمین فیلم های جکی چنگ میدید و با اکسنت کره ای انگلیسی رو یاد گرفته بود. بعدم که ازدواج کرد بچه دار شد اسم دخترش رو هم اسم من گذاشت و اینا میخواستن من از این طریق چون این کانتکت ها رو داشتم ببینم از داخل ایران میتونم مثلا رضایی و اینا رو بیارم طرف خودمون و اینا. خب خیلی اینجوری از ما ایرانی هم سوال میکردن که آره مثلا نظرتون چه؟ ما خیلی صحبت کرده بودیم درباره اینکه آقا این ریفرمیستا و اینا تو دانشگاه خطرناکن، ولی متاسفانه به جایی نرسیدیم و من بعضی وقتا واقعا فکر کنم مثلا بیهوده ما وقت گذاشتیم. Now a question, do you think, because you say in your book on page 365 you're talking about Percy, and this was interesting for me, so I marked it. And Qasem Soleimani, you say I arranged to meet Percy for lunch. Percy was an Iranian businessman, for those of you who don't know, that haven't read the book yet, that was helping Ken with, of course, Percy's not his name. It's a...
He was my guys.
He was, right. So Percy was helping Ken. And so I arranged to meet Percy for lunch in another city for a few hours away. These face-to-face meetings were always productive because he could tell me more about his network of sources that he didn't dare communicate electronically, with the understanding that I would pass it on to Dave. Dave was somebody with the CIA, right?
No, he was my FBI handler.
Your FBI. Right. He had new information on Quds forces plot to run by Qasem Soleimani to send 5 agents to the United States to infiltrate the office of Reza Pahlavi. 3 of the 5 were already established as political refugees, while the other 2 were preparing their legends in Tabriz. He also gave me a map of Quds Force secret intelligence bases inside Iraqi Kurdistan, and their method of recruitment and operation. Do you have any idea if these 5 ever made it to Reza Pahlavi's camp?
I believe that the first 3 of them did. And the FBI went on to warn Reza Pahlavi about them.
And he didn't want to listen.
No,
You had a meeting with him. I read it in the other book.
Well, this is later on. This is in 2018. What in the earlier book, it was a much earlier penetration. But look, the Iranian regime has consistently tried to infiltrate the opposition, especially opposition groups of significance. So in the mid to late 1990s, of course, they tried to infiltrate Reza Pahlavi's entourage. I was also involved at that time with that, and and the FBI warned him, and his aides told him it was not significant, it was not important. But this is 20 years later. This is 2018,
Right.
and I think in this case it was far more serious because these people were not political operatives. They were Quds Force operatives. They were people who could have assassinated Reza Pahlavi. So I tend to believe that he took that very seriously because, he's fine, thank God.
But there's still forces there.
Well, look, the FBI has reported to Congress repeatedly that they are tracking dozens of Iranian regime networks, cells in the United States. And I am aware of a few of them myself. I've reported on some of them to the FBI. But they are talking to many other people and tracking the Iranian regime activities inside the United States, including, by the way, efforts to assassinate former President Donald Trump.
خب پرسیدم چون که تو همون کتابش نوشته بود Countdown to Crisis، هم تو این کتاب که عده‌ای میخواستن به دفتر شاهزاده رخنه بکنن. اون دفعه یادمه که آقای تیمرم وقتی جلسه گذاشته بود، آقای اویسی و it was Ovaisi and Ahi who the last time, the first time.
I did not mention that.
Okay. Oh, no, you didn't mention the names? Okay, you said some officials. Okay. گفته بودن که نه، کسی رو ما دور و برمون نداریم. کسی اینفیلتریت نکرده. ولی این 18 سال بعده و این از نیروهای قدس فورسن که آقای تیمرم فکر کنم 3 تاشون رخنه کردن تو اون سیستم، ولی obviously شاهزاده خوددارش رو که هنوز اتفاقی براش نیفتاده و شاید تونسته که یه جوری مهار کنه. حالا دیگه این یه ذره this for me is a little bit this is going to be another interview because I have a lot to talk to you about. This will be another interview about the infiltration in Reza Pahlavi's camp. Now
tell you another story though, Roxanne, that you probably don't know either, and it's the story that gave the title to the book, The Iran House. And so this was again early on in when Reza Pahlavi was still quite active and getting active with the U.S. Congress and working to try to establish a political opposition amongst different groups. And so I hosted a dinner for Reza, a very private dinner at my house in Kensington, Maryland, with Safa Hayeri, who you might know, is a journalist from Paris,
yes,
and Uri Lubrani, the Israeli government's Mr.
Lubrani, right?
He was in charge of the Israeli government's Iran policy,
right?
And we had this very private dinner in my home in Kensington, Maryland. And after Lubrani went back with his embassy guide, they were talking about how they could cooperate and what the Israeli government could do to help these Iranian opposition. And this is a story that I tell throughout the book because there are many other things that happened.
You have a lot about Lubrani in the book. I saw that. Right.
I talked to Uri Lubrani, and we did many things together. And at the end of the dinner,
the Hambastegi, the Solidarity Conference, and all that. Yes, right.
So, Safa turns to me and says, "Ken, this was really the beginning of something tonight, this dinner, and it's so significant. We were sitting on top of this beautiful Mahi carpet from Tabriz, and you know Tabriz has a great significance for Iranians because 1906, 1911 revolution. This is the Khane Iran. Your house has
become your house.
Iran.
Oh, this is nice. Iran. So was this before the D'Amato hearings or after the D'Amato hearings?
Before the what?
The D'Amato hearings. Remember when he came and
after the D'Amato hearings? Yes.
This was after the D'Amato hearings because he was active, very active then.
Yeah, your house is the Khane Iran, and you'll see there's some photographs at the back of the book of including your father. There's a picture of your father with a number of other people, Kurds, Baluchis.
The Kurds and everybody. Yes, I saw that.
And a Shiite Ayatollah Rouhani, who are all there.
Who worked with you for years. Yeah.
At Khane
Where's he at?
He's dead. He died in 2000.
He died. Okay. یا آیت الله روحانی بود که خیلی با کار میکرد روی ایران و مسائل ایران و اینا. Now I'm gonna talk to you about a little bit about what's going on now with the elections and everything. In a part of the book, you talk about the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad's attack, not just on Iranian operation. It was not just an Iranian operation, but also provided by a senior advisor to the then former Vice President Biden to destroy Trump's chances of re-election. So the Democrats have been at this at the expense of protecting the Islamic Republic, giving them funds, giving them money. This is all the Democrats, unfortunately. They've done this.
They were hoping for an October surprise. Remember, the Democrats since 1979, since 1980, actually, they coined this term October surprise. They used it about Ronald Reagan, and they accused Reagan's advisors of having a clandestine channel to Tehran so the Iranian regime would keep the American hostages in Tehran until after the election. So they would use that against Jimmy Carter. And ever since, they've spoken of an October surprise. So this was over New Year's 2020, right? They were trying to carry out an October surprise against President Trump to try to get him entangled in a foreign war, basically, or a situation where there would be American hostages in the U.S. Embassy, Baghdad. Let me kind of backtrack a little bit for our listeners, just so you can remember what was going on and what my role in it, because I played a very
you're right.
A role in this whole operation. In late December 2019, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq attacked U.S. forces in northern Iraq. They killed 3 contractors. They hit a number of U.S. bases in Iraq, and President Trump retaliated immediately, as the Obama administration never did, retaliated immediately and killed a bunch of those militiamen. Well, then they started to gather around the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad after Christmas, before New Year's 2019. And they were gathering around the embassy. More and more people were coming. It started to look like Benghazi, right? There were thousands of people around the embassy. They wanted to storm the walls of the embassy. And instead of just doing nothing, as Obama and Hillary Clinton did when Benghazi was stormed, President Trump immediately brought up 100 or 200 U.S. Marines from Kuwait, helicoptered them up to Baghdad, to the embassy, to protect the embassy. Meanwhile, while this was going on, I was working with the FBI because I had one of my guys, one of my sub-agents, one of my sources, was directly plugged in to the Supreme Leader's office in Tehran. And so he was feeding me real-time intelligence on what the Iranian intentions were. And he said, yes, they're going to attack the embassy in Baghdad. They are going to storm the embassy. They're not going to do it yet. This is a dry run. This is a warm-up, but they are going to do it. And of course, the person in charge of the operation is Qasem Soleimani. So then New Year's comes by. Then we're on the New Year's Day, and I'm on the phone all the time. My family's down here, and instead of having New Year's Eve and New Year's with my family, I'm on the phone, different phones and different devices that I had, communicating with this guy, and then communicating with the FBI and passing on this information. And they say the information is going right up to the White House, right into the Oval Office. And at some point, they asked me, "What do you think we should do? Should we, what should we do about this?" And I said, look, it's clear. You have to hit them very hard. Don't just give a pinprick attack in response. It was good what you did by attacking the militia groups, but you have to hit the Iranian regime because they're the ones who are ordering this attack, and you have to hit them very hard, so hard that they will not get up from the ground. The next day, the president ordered the drone strike on Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad as he arrived in Baghdad at 1 o'clock in the morning. And as I say in the book, if I played just even a tiny role like that in encouraging him.
That's not tiny. That's a huge.
I'm very proud. And I think that's was one of the best decisions that President Trump made. Certainly
But he had the guts to make that decision, Ken, because obviously Hillary and Obama, instead of doing anything like that, sent a plane full of money to them.
And many of his advisors were telling him not to do it. Many of his advisors were telling him.
But he had the guts feeling that you're right, and he did it. خب let me say it in Farsi. خب 2019 وقتی که میلیشه‌های ایرانی تو عراق و اینا شروع میکنن به بیس‌های امریکا حمله کردن و 3 نفر رو میکشن، 3 تا کانترکتور رو میکشن اینا، آقای ترامپ تصمیم میگیره که شوخی بوخی نداره و مردم هم داشتن جمع میشدن، حالتهای بنغازی رو گرفته بوده که میخوان بریزن تو امبسی، تو سفارت امریکا، و ترامپ شوخی نداشته. آقای تیمرم با اف بی آی ایجنتش، با یکی از ایجنت‌ها که باهاش همکاری میکرده که دسترسی داشته و هک میکرده دفتر خامنه‌ای رو، اینفورمیشن میگیره، میگه نیویرزی بود و تمام فامیلم پایین بود، ولی من تمام مدت رو تلفن بودم چون اینفورمیشن خیلی مهمی داشته میومده بیرون که اینا میریزن توی سفارت امریکا، حمله خواهند کرده. الان نمیکنن، الان شروع میکنن ولی میریزن. بعد از آقای تیمرمن میپرسه وایت هست که تو نظرت چیه؟ تیکت میگه که ببینین این شوخی نیست، تو بنغازی هم خب این کار کرده بودن، شما الان با اتک کردن اینا و این که ضربه کوچیک بهشون بزنی اینا از رو نمیرن، باید جوری بزنینشون زمین که دیگه از جا بلند نشد و شوخی نباید باشون بکنین. و همون روز آقای ترامپ دستور زدن قاسم سلیمانی رو تو بغداد میده که فرداش که قاسم سلیمانی صبح زود وارد بغداد میشه دیدیم که با درون زدن و کشتنش. This is really interesting. Now let's get to the elections that are coming up, and I'm very nervous about these elections because we've seen how they operate. I mean, last time Trump really, for me, won, and we slept, and in the middle of the night, everything turned upside down. Okay, let's say the Democrats won. What's going to happen with this? This is also a sham election because seriously, I've never heard anything like this, for them to push the president aside the way the Democrats did. This was really disrespectful to the office of the president of the United States. For them to, I mean, we know that he's not capable of another 4 years, but for the Democrats to corner him like that, and very bad the way they handled this whole thing, and then bringing Kamala in, who has for me, she has nothing. She's been a backdrop for Biden, and now she's totally incompetent for being a president. I mean, who would not want a woman president in the United States? But somebody who's got background, who, I mean, I don't care. She's not made for the job. You can just tell. But she's all of a sudden saving them. And now Trump's ahead, but it's very razor thin. I'm very worried about this. They are dealing with the mullahs again. They're dealing with the mullahs. Just this morning, we heard about a probable meeting between Kamala Harris and one of these mullahs who's close to the Ayatollahs in Iran. What do you see happening? What's going on? How do you see things turning? You did this at the election heist, and you were right. Let me see what you say about this one.
Well, first of all, you know, the Democrats are saying over and over again, their media mouthpieces are repeating it, that Trump is a threat to democracy, right? That's what they say.
Right. Yeah, they do.
They don't quite say how, but they say he's a threat to democracy. Well, look, you just described a coup d'etat where the elected president, Joe Biden, who had gone through the primaries, won all of his primaries. He had 14 million votes. He won 14 million votes in the primaries. He was just cast aside, and somebody put in his place who didn't win a single vote, not one vote, and who never won a single primary in the 2019-2020 election. So that's a threat to democracy, where you have actually taken away an elected leader and replaced him with somebody who was selected by the party. So.
آقای من پرسیدم، گفتم که این وضعیت این انتخابات جوری که آقای بایدن رو گذاشتن کنار، یعنی کامپلیتلی یه دفعه بایدن رو بدون هیچ دلیل، یعنی خب ما میدونیم بله از لحاظ مموری اینا خوب نیستش، ولی اینجوری که دیگه نمیتونن بزنن کنار، یه دفعه گذاشتنش کنار با این آبروریزی، بعد یه دفعه برای که خودشون نجات بدن یه زنی که اصلا کوالیفاید نیست برای این پوزیشن، این آوردن جلو. چجوری میبینین این انتخابات؟ آقای تیمرم میگه که اینا به ترامپ میگن خطر به دموکراسی، threat to democracy. ولی آقای بایدن 14 میلیون رای تو پرایمری آورد. خانم کامالا هریس هیچی رای نیاورده بوده. اینا تمام سیستم امریکا رو خودشون دارن، اینا ثرت به دموکراسی هن، چون این کاری که اینا کردن با بایدن دموکراتیک نبود. اینجوری شما نمیتونید تصمیم بگیری، یه پارتی تصمیم بگیره آقا پرزیدنت بره کنار، این کاندیدا بیاد جاشو بگیره. اصلا همچین چیزی عملی نیست. How do you see it turning, going, you think President Trump has a big chance, or how do you see it turning this next 3 weeks?
Look, everybody's watching the polls, and the polls are much, much tighter than they were in 2020 or 2016. So, we'll see how accurate those polls are, and we'll see, hopefully we're going to have an honest, fair, free election where every American citizen who wants to vote is able to vote, and every American citizen who votes has their vote counted and has their vote counted accurately. And if that happens, I am convinced that Donald Trump will return to the White House. But, I talk in the book about Kamala Harris, and I talk about her national security advisor, a man named Philip Gordon. And the Democrats are touting him as her Secretary of State, the person that she would like to be Secretary of State. Well, this is a man who is closely tied to the Iran lobby, the pro-Tehran, the pro-Mullah lobby in the United States. He has co-authored 3 op-eds, not one, but 3 op-eds with a woman named Ariane Tabatabai, who has been identified as one of these influencers in the Iran Experts Initiative, right, with Robert Malley and Ali Vaez and Trita Parsi.
And Trita Parsi, yeah.
One of these people, and she currently is the staff director for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations. She has a top secret security clearance, and this woman emails Jafar, Mohammed, Jafar, the former foreign minister, right, asking him whether she should go to this conference, whether she should meet this person, what she should do. And she has a top secret clearance.
Zarif, you mean? Yeah, Javad Zarif. He ran them. Yeah.
She's been in contact with.
Oh yeah.
The national security.
This is all NIAC. And now our source is funding the other part of NIAC, which is the Quincy Institute, and they're all over the place. خب آقای تیمرم میگه که من درباره کامالا هریس هم تو کتابم نوشتم، من البته وقت نکردم من کتابو بخونم. میگه که what was Philip Gordon's what is his position, national political?
Philip Gordon.
What is his position, national political advisor?
Advisor to Kamala Harris, to Vice President Harris.
الان مشاور کارهای سیاسی خانم هریسه و این آدم 3 op-ed، یعنی 3 مقاله توی روزنامه‌های بزرگ نیویورک تایمز اینا می‌نویسد. با آریان طباطبایی داشته. آریان طباطبایی که میدونین با تریتا پارسی و علی واعظ و رابرت مالی و اینا همه با همدیگه همکارن و تو این خانم یکی از پوزیشن‌های خیلی بالا رو داره و خیلی چیز تاپ سیکرت ها و اینا در زیر دستش رد میشه و سکیوریتی داره، سکیوریتی کلیرنس داره و این آدم تمام دستوراش از جواد ظریف، این علی واعظ، آقای چیتا پارسی، اینا زیر دستای جواد ظریفن و الان تو دولت امریکا تا تو وایت هاوس تا تو اینجور پوزیشن‌ها اینا که دست these are policy makers in vis-a-vis Iran in the United States government. And they've been for years. Even during Trump, he couldn't get rid of some of them. I mean, he was so consumed with other stuff that they threw at him. Because I remember when the first meeting we had after Trump got elected, the first time President Trump got elected, when the State Department came to Los Angeles, this girl, what's her name, Sahat Nouruzizadeh, was with the State Department deputy that came here, the desk of Iran, who the gentleman was let go a few weeks later. I remember they walked him off the White House, the one who was in charge of the Iran desk and everything. And I questioned that in public. I said, "What?" Me and Rusbe were the only people who spoke up. That what are you doing?
Let me just give you one detail you might not recall, is that before Sarah Nuruzadeh was the deputy at the Iran desk. Under Obama, she had been in charge of Iran policy in the White House at the National Security Council. So Trump sent her back to the State Department, where he figured she was going to not be so influential or so powerful.
Is she still there? She's still at the State Department, I think, yeah?
No, I don't know.
I hope he gets rid of all of them when he comes. ما یادمه که دونالد ترامپ وقتی که من گفتم اینو بارها الکت شد، استیت دیپارتمنت که اومد اینجا با ماها به عنوان اپوزیسیون میت کنه، این سهر نوروزی زاده که الان کن میگه که تو وایت هاوس بود زمان اوباما، ولی آقای ترامپ فرستادش دوباره به استیت دیپارتمنت که قدرتش رو ازش بگیره مقداری. این خانم اومده بود تو میتینگ اپوزیسیون ایرانی و من روزبه فرهانی پور گفتیم آقا این خانم واسه چی به خودتون آوردی؟ این نایکه. I said it in English. I said she's a Nayak member and she said not anymore. Not anymore. No. She's an agent with the regime for sure. عجب بابا. Anyway, so let's see what else I wanted to. Current situation in Iran. There's so much to talk and have not that much time left. The current situation in Iran, Ken, and the current situation with Israel, and everybody's in Iran's waiting in a limbo to see if they will hit Iran or not. You years ago talked about EMP, which is a very, very touchy thing if Iran has EMP or will have EMP. And you've described this, I've heard you in your interviews about electronic magnetic power, and if they they let it go, what damage it could make to the world. And in a matter of I remember I saw an interview with you. You said the United States could go back to 1820 in a matter of days.
1880, which would be
1880.
80 to 90 million. If we hit with an EMP strike that took out our electrical grid, because that's what it does. It takes out the electrical grid.
So why is it that, and I understand that Israel right now is trying to loosen the arms of the Islamic Republic so that they can't come to its aid when and the time comes that they're going to hit Iran. I understand that. Not Iran, the Islamic Republic. But what happens if this is available to them? And they might even have it now. What happens with this crazy government? Why is the world dealing with this government, especially the United States, still appeasing them? Why? I can't understand this for the life of me.
Look, the Iranian regime today is far more powerful, far more influential, and far more technologically advanced than they were just 4 years ago when Donald Trump was president. They're also far more wealthy. They have had a windfall of over $100 billion in oil revenues that were frozen under Donald Trump, or frozen. They were not allowed to export that oil. The oil was under sanctions. The oil is still under sanctions because they're mandated by Congress, but the Biden-Harris administration stopped enforcing them. So that allowed the Iranians to sell oil and to make this $100 billion extra money. So what are they doing? They're working on their nuclear weapons program. They're working on ballistic missiles. They're building drones. They are helping Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the Iraqi militia groups, and they're trying their very best to stay in power by repressing the Iranian people, right? This regime is far more powerful because of Democrats in the White House. I believe, and I've said this for many years, and I say this also in the book, I believe it is in America's national security interest to help the people of Iran to loosen the shackles of tyranny so they can then rise up without fear against this regime. This does not mean we have, we're going to foment a revolution or that we're going to put American boots on the ground, but we can do things to help the Iranian people to be able to organize, to be able to protest openly, and to get their story out to the world as events are taking place, instead of allowing the regime to put down this cover of darkness, to shut off the internet and to keep news from getting out. We can turn on the internet inside Iran so the Iranian people can get their message out immediately to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world can see how disgraceful and how reprehensible this regime in Tehran actually is towards its own people to start with.
Well, let me translate first, and then I have a question for you. Let me just tell Yasser I need at least 10 more minutes. Yasser Jad, I need 10 more minutes, please. Okay. Question. Let me translate first. آقای تیمرمن میگه که جمهوری اسلامی الان 4 سال بعد از که آقای ترامپ از آفیس رفته هم پولدارتره، به خاطر که سانکشن ها رو برداشته هریسینا و این تونسته نفت رو بفروشه حداقل $100 میلیون جلوه الان، و دیدیم که از طریق they allowed the money through the Qataris to go to Iran. So از طریق قطر they say they stopped it but we don't know if they really did it.
Qatar and China.
از طریق قطر و چاینا و اینا پول گرفتن، تکنولوژیشون پیشرفته تر شده، قدرتمندتر شدن، تونستن درون بسازن، تونستن موشک درست کنن، کمک کنن به حزب الله و اینا که اونا قوی تر بشن، که البته now Hezbollah is really being paralyzed by Israel. I think they really lost a lot during this past few months. برای همین آقای تیمرم میگه که اینا قوی تر شدن. ما باید یه کاری کنیم که وقتی ایرانیا بتونن بیان بیرون اعتصابات بکنن، اینا اینترنت داشته باشن که بتونن که صداشون به دنیا برسونن و بتونن خواستهاشون به دنیا و دنیا روشن‌تر بشه. ما باید سعی کنیم اینجوری کمک کنیم. Again, I understand what you're saying, but the people of Iran have gone through civil disobedience movements. They've gone through uprisings where the world, this last one, Massa, everybody all over the world saw what's going on in Iran. How much longer do we have to hope that people will finally hear the voices? I mean, what's the solution besides this? Because they've tried this.
Nobody stood up for the Iranian people. Nobody stood up. No governments stood up for the Iranian people. No governments said, look, we are not going to allow regime officials who were involved in repressing the people of Iran to land with their aircraft in our countries. They were traveling to Europe. They were traveling to New York, to the UN Security Council. They were going wherever they wanted to do. The Quds Force continues to have its bank accounts in various places around the world. We were not going after their finances. We were not cutting off their oil shipments. There are so many things that we can do. President Trump did some of them in his first term with the maximum pressure campaign. That is, I think, the first thing that President Trump will do when he returns to the White House, is to restore the maximum pressure campaign. But I certainly hope he will go much further than that and have America wave that banner of freedom and mean it, and actually stand behind the beacon of freedom on the hill that people who seek freedom around the world have always respected. We need to be the voice for the Iranian people, to support their voice, to amplify their voice, and to support their actions as well. And that's something that has not happened before. You've never had a government actually come out and say, we are going to support the people of Iran in their struggle for freedom. That's what I think would make a big difference.
I hope you get a position with the Trump administration. I really do. You should be up there. I vote for you. کن میگه که امیدواره که میگه من پرسیدم گفتم که خب این مردم ایران هم نافرمانی‌های مدنی کردن، هم اومدن بیرون کشته شدن. این مهسا موومنت نمونهش بود. دنیا دیده چی به سر ما اومده. کن میگه ولی دنیا پشت مردم ایران وای نساده. باید راههای هوایی رو به روی اینا میبستن، باید اینا رو تحریم، آفیشالا رو تحریم میکردن، تو ممالکشون راه نمیدادن. هیچ کسی این کارا رو نکرده. ترامپ اولی که اومد ماکسیمم پرشر پروگرامش رو داشت که به روشون فشار بیاره و میگه من مطمئنم که اگه ترامپ برگرده سر کار این اتفاق خواهد افتاد دوباره و ماکسیمم پرشر شروع میکنه. گفتم امیدوارم که تیمرمن یه پوزیشنی توی گاورمنت ترامپ بگیره که ما ایرانی‌ها خیالمون راحت باشه، بالاخره یه کسی صدای ماست. I hope that he clears out all this NIAC business from the State Department and White House. I hope that you guys who have some say can make a point that this needs to be done right away. I'm worried that he's going to be consumed with the cases that they're going to hit him with and all the media hoopla that they're going to have against him. Again, remember the Russia hoax, and they really took up his time, the 4 years, to deal with this stuff.
You know, Roxanne, the first time that Donald Trump came to the White House, he said in his inaugural speech, and I was there. I was right there in the front row watching it. That finally the American people were going to be put back in charge of the government, and he meant that.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, he was not. He did not truly understand how deep the deep state was, and how un-American the deep state was. And the deep state essentially went after him for the next 4 years. That's not going to happen this time. Donald Trump knows better. He's had 4 years of constant assault by the deep state, and yet look at all the things he still got done. He got the Abraham Accords done. He kept the price. When he left office, the price of gasoline on the East Coast was $1.87 a gallon. In California, it was $2.57 a gallon when Donald Trump left office. Look at what it is today. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people. There was no inflation, at virtually zero inflation. The stock market was up. We had recovered economically from COVID, and the economy was on an upward spiral. And look where we are today. Everything has come down. We have over 20% inflation just in food items. You know, 50% inflation in the price of gas. Homes have gone way up. Mortgages,
interest rate, right?
All of these things have happened in just 4 years. Donald Trump is going to come back to office with a team of people, of seasoned professionals who know how the government runs, who've been there, who have seen what the deep state can do. And I am actually quite optimistic for his chances of success and of turning this country around. But he needs everybody to go out and vote in this election. And if you intend to support Donald Trump, go out and vote early in person, so the Republican Party can then spend their assets getting the people who are going to be a little bit late to the polls to get them to come to the polls.
I already did. I already voted. So, yeah, I got it done ahead of time. آقای تیمرم میگه که من پرسیدم دونالد ترامپ ممکنه که این گرفتاریه که براش تو 4 سال درست کردن دوباره درست کنه که نتونه درست کارشو بکنه، مثلا رو پالیسی ایران. میگه که نه، این دفعه دونالد ترامپ یاد گرفته از اون دفعه که این دموکرات‌ها چجوری میان دنبالش، فکر نمی‌کرد که اینجوری بیان و اینقدر کثیف بازی بکنن، ولی این دفعه با یه تیم خیلی قدرتمندی داره وارد میشه و میدونه که اینا کیپبلن که چه کارایی بکنن و با تجربه بیشتر داره میاد و مطمئنا الان وضع اقتصادی امریکا خراب شده، از همه لحاظ وضع امریکا خراب شده و این کارا رو دوباره خواهد کرد. زمان ترامپ خیلی اقتصاد همه چیز واقعا بهتر شده بود و اینا، و دوباره برمیگردیم به اونجا. فقط این مستلزم این نیست که شما همه برید رای بدید و به دونالد ترامپ رای بدید. ایرانی هایی که به دونالد ترامپ رای نمیدید اقلا به هیچ کی رای ندید. این زنکو نفرستین تو وایت هاوس که دوباره پدر ما با این جمهوری اسلامی در بیاد. اگه اهمیت برای ایران نمیدین، تو رو خدا رای ندیم. I'm telling the Iranians, if you're not voting for Trump, just stay home. Don't vote for Kamala Harris. Seriously. I can't understand any patriotic Iranian voting for Kamala Harris or the Dems.
Kamala Harris is very simple. It's a vote for the Tehran regime. If
Absolutely.
you are Iranian American, it is a vote for the Tehran regime. So if you support the Tehran regime, by the way, what are you doing in America?
میگه که اگه که به تهران رژیم میخواین سپورت کنین، امریکا چیکار میکنین؟ شما اگه به هریس رای بدین دارین به رژیم تهران رای میدین. Ken, I had a lot of questions but I'm out of time. I wanted to spend one other time when I finished the book completely to talk to you, and I wanted to, last question, this is a very sensitive question but it needs a whole program, we'll spend more time on that, the division between this Iranian opposition. And I mean, I've read some of this book, I've read your other books, we've talked, we've seen it, we've experienced it between the different ethnic groups, between the different factions, the monarchists, the Republicans. I mean, all this anger, all this name calling, all this division. How do you think we're going to get rid of this income? If the Islamic Republic goes, there's no coalition. There is no coalition. Reza Pahlavi the other said, I have a full coalition inside and outside. We don't have a coalition. Let's not fool each other. We don't.
But I am a lot more optimistic than you are, Roxanne, and for one simple reason. For one simple reason. When you have nothing, as the Iranian opposition has today, you fight over the crumbs. When you see that power is within reach, all of a sudden people get very realistic. Look at the revolutionaries in 1978 to 1979. That was a pretty amazing coalition that was pulled together. They duped a lot of people. A lot of people were tricked into supporting Khomeini. Absolutely true. But people rallied around what they considered to be success. Let me remind you of one story that I was told by Bani Sadr years and years and years ago back in Paris. He said when they were in Neuf-le-Château in 1978, Bani Sadr was, talking to foreign journalists and other people. A group of Bazari came to see His Eminence, and they carried with them a suitcase with $40 million inside. And they said, we would like to go see His Eminence and, to give a little token of our appreciation and support for him. So Bani Sadr goes upstairs and he talks to Khomeini. Khomeini says, those bastards, where were they 3 months ago? They should have been here 3 months ago with that suitcase. You tell them to leave the suitcase in the hallway and get the hell out of here. And you know what they did? They left the suitcase and they got out. And Khomeini never said thank you. So this is Iran. People get on the train after it's left the station. They're running to catch up to the train, throw their baggage on board, and maybe the train leaves and leaves without them. But they've thrown their baggage on board. I am actually hopeful of what will happen once the synergy takes off.
Yeah, I hope the outcome doesn't turn out to be what happened in Iran.
Ceausescu was one of the most powerful leaders in the world.
He was. Yeah.
And 3 weeks later, he was hung. Right? So this can happen very quickly.
خب از آقای تیمرم پرسیدم که اپوزیسیون ایران الان به برنامه اصلا میخوام بذارم با آقای تیمرم فقط اپوزیسیون ایران الان بعد از این همه سال از کرد و بلوچ و آذری و همه به اضافه جمهوری خواه و مشروطه خواه و همه به جون همین اصلا نتونستیم با هم دیگه یه اتحاد و همبستگی یه کولیشن درست بکنیم. چجوری میبینین؟ الان اگه فردا جمهوری اسلامی بره چی میشه؟ آقای تیمرم میگه من مثل تو منفی نیستم. من فکر میکنم که وقتی که ببینن که ایران داره به طرف آزادی میره و پیروزی نزدیکه همه میپرن. الان همتون سر خورده نونا دعوا دارین میکنین، ولی وقتی ببینید پیروزی نزدیکه همتون میپرین روی اون قطار همبستگی که باید مثلا بره جلو، مثل زمان خمینی. بعد داستانی از قول بنی صدر میگه که آقای تیمرم میگه بنی صدر به آقای تیمرم گفته که زمانی که ما نفرشتو بودیم و ما همه خبرنگارا می اومدن و میرفتن، یه سری بازاریا با یه دونه چمدون پول میان بلو خمینی و میگن اومدیم حضرت آیت الله رو ببینیم. بنی صدر میره بالا میگه اینا یه چمدون پول واسه شما آوردن، اینقدر نمیدونم 40 میلیون چقدر واسهتون آوردن. خمینی میگه که غلط کردن، 3 ماه پیش اینا کجا بودن؟ چمدون رو ازشون بگیرین، خودشون رو بندازین، بگین برن گم شن. اونا چمدون رو میذارن و میرن. بنابراین میگه که اون آخر سر قطاره که بره همه میخوان اون قطاره بپرن و میپرن و من خیلی نگران نیستم. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. After the elections, we will talk again for sure. And I want to have after I read this book, because there's a lot of figures that I've known and some light bulbs came on, and I'm sure more light bulbs will come when I read it over and over again. I will definitely have a program on half of it on the opposition, half of it on the book. And I really appreciate your time, and always great to be with you, Ken.
Thanks so much, Roxanne. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you. من تشکر میکنم از آقای تیمرم برای زمانی که به من دادن و یاسر جان آماده ایم که بریم. Thank you very much, Ken.
Get the book at Amazon and other online books.
Amazon کتاب آقای تیمرم یادتون نره. بهتون دوباره نشون بدم. The Iran House روی آمازون هستش، حتما بخرید و بخونید. و ممنونم از یاسر اتاق فرمان، از صدف عزیزم، بچهای کلاب هاوس. I really appreciate it and I'll see you in Clubhouse in a minute. Merci. Thank you, آقای تیمرمن. Take care. Bye-bye. مرسی یاسر جان. Thanks Ken, I really appreciate.
های یخ زده، آدمک های بی امید، 40 سال سهممون شده امامه سیاسفی، ترانه های یخ زده، آدمک های بی امید، 40 سال سهممون شده امامه سیاسفی، 40 سال زندگی ما فقط نفس کشیدنه، بزرگترین آرزومون به انتها رسیدنه. فکر میکنیم که زنده ایم، ما تو جوونی پیر شدیم، ما توی خاک خودمون به دست دین اسیر شدیم، باید به جنگشون بریم، ترس و سکوت بس دیگه، هر کی میگه درست میشه داره بهت دروغ میگه. تا خودمون بلند نشیم هیچی خودش خوب نمیشه، رفتن این بی بطه ها بدون آشوب نمیشه. کرد و عرب یا ترک و لور، بلوچ و گیل و مازنی، با هر زبون و هر لباس خودت نماد وطنیم، باید که متحد باشیم تا از سیاهی بگذریم، چیزی نمونده تا سحر تو لحظه های آخرین، ترانه های یخ زده، آدمک های بی امید، 40 سال سهممون شده امامه سیاسفی، 40 سال زندگی ما فقط نفس کشیدنه، بزرگترین آرزومون به انتها رسیدنه، به انتها رسیدنه، به انتها رسیدنه.
درود به شما همیهنان عزیزم، خوشحالم که امروز با شما هستم و باید به اینجا برسیم که بتونیم با هم کار کنیم برای آزادی ایران. خب اومدن به هم ریختن، اگه نکرده بودن این کارو ممکن بودش که با امروز یه جای دیگه بودیم، مثلا شاید مملکتمون بودیم. هر کسی آزاد نظرشو بده و پاسخگو هم نباید باشه. ما باید ببینیم که چی میخوایم. ما آزادی احزاب احتیاج داریم، یعنی که بتونیم چندین ماه فعالیت بکنیم. رسانه ها باید آزاد باشه، زندان‌های سیاسی باید خالی بشه، حقوق بشر باید حفظ بشه، حقوق زنان باید حفظ بشه، حقوق کودکان باید حفظ بشه.